Welcome back to another episode of the R2 Cents podcast. I am here with my lovely wife, Asia. It
Hello.
happens to be Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to you and everyone else who's in a relationship out there. So this week, we are going to talk about a topic that has kind of become an important piece of our life, Asia and I's life over the last, say, decade. It's something that we discuss very often, if not daily. And so we're excited to just have another conversation around it because we really enjoy talking about it and we really enjoy learning about it and we really enjoy hearing other people's thoughts on it and the way they think around mindset. So this week we're going to be chatting around about mindset and what that looks like and share a little bit about Asia and I's story and how ours has shifted over the years, I would say pretty dramatically. So, like I said, it's something that we really enjoy talking about with each other. And I really enjoy reading about it. And we definitely enjoy speaking with other people about this topic and sort of, I guess, picking their brains. Everybody has a different, I guess, would have a different mindset. And so there's not necessarily a right and a wrong way to go about this or a mindset to have. I think it all just depends on what it is you want out of life or some venture that you're in, or whether you play sports or are in business or are a parent. There's mindsets that are beneficial or negative towards whatever your goal might be in any of those areas. So let's get it going. So I guess we'll maybe just start on generally what your thoughts on mindset would be. Like what is mindset to you, and what sort of things mindset wise do you think about or talk with people?
That's a really good question. I actually kind of feel like, even though I knew what this podcast is going to be about, this question kind of puts me on the spot to be able to answer in a way that is true to what I actually think and not just like something that I've read from a book or things that I've heard from other people. I think generally for me, one of my biggest mindset shifts is to always find the positive in things. And I think with Aaron, he'll even say this too. He's like, sometimes I'm like toxic positivity because I'm just like, don't worry, like everything's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. But I will like intentionally not think of the negatives, where Aaron is a little bit more different, where I mean maybe he'll get into that too, but he's different. He'll be like, no, knowing the negatives is good because then you're not surprised by them and you can deal with them when they come. But I'm just like, no, it's just I'm not even gonna think about the negatives because I don't want to put them out there in the universe. They could potentially happen. But I think for me with mindset, I mean, there's been a lot of shifts that we've had with mindset. I think I approach it differently for different things in my life. But yeah, I don't really like what exactly do you mean by that with that? Like, I think with mindset, it's different for different areas of my life. So it doesn't all just
Yeah.
apply.
So I guess what my question, like the way I would answer that question is a mindset for me is almost like a guiding pathway to navigate whatever it is I'm navigating.
Mhm.
So if I am a parent and I have the mindset that I want to inspire my kids and want to have them do positive things, and that then my mindset is sort of a guidance on how I should behave towards my kids.
Yeah.
So to me it's almost like a you know another one too is if I am an ungrateful person, my
Right.
mindset is one of I am ungrateful for everything that comes my way. I am hard done by, I have bad luck, I am this, that, and the other thing. For me, that person is going through life with this like guiding star of negative. For me, no matter what happens, it's a bad break. And then you have the opposite person who's, you know, they could get a little cookie at lunch and it's the greatest day ever. And I'm so grateful that that person took 1 minute of their day. I don't even know who that person is. But they took 1 minute of their day to give me a cookie at lunch. And I'm so lucky. And, those are two completely different ways of thinking.
Mhm.
And those two ways of thinking guide those two people in very different ways. So the way I would answer that question is it's like almost like a guiding a way of thought for somebody. And for me, that's kind of how I think of it. So a problem might arise where I need to think about, how do I want to be guided through this problem, or guided through this event, or guided through this? Is being ungrateful beneficial to me in this scenario? Probably not. So I think about it in that way. It's almost like somebody holding your hand, guiding you through something. And this is one of the reasons I think it's so critical to think about mindset and to construct one that positively benefits you in life, because it's a huge help.
Yeah. Okay. Now with that lens on, I can definitely answer this in kind of two ways, but I just like examples you've given. One that comes to my mind right away is that I'm in control of most things in my life. That is a mindset that I feel that I have now that I probably didn't have like 5, 6, 7 years ago. That is something where it's like, whether there's things that happen to me that are out of my control, I am absolutely in control of the way that I respond to things. And I'm in control of the way that I deal with them. And I'm in control of a lot of the elements that come along with that. Maybe I contributed to it. Maybe I didn't, like having that self-awareness. So I think that is one big thing. And another mindset that I have that I feel like I want to actually accredit to you, but it's something that I've applied to so many areas of my life, is that literally everything is figure outable. And I think those two things together, even though there's situations that arise in life that aren't ideal, I think when you approach them with like, there are so many elements that I am in control of here and everything is figure outable, you find a solution to the problem. And it doesn't always mean it's the absolute best solution, but I think those are two big guiding principles to my mindset these days.
Okay, so let's go back. One of the things we wanted to talk about specifically on this episode was our mindset around traditional education and employment route versus an entrepreneur slash business route, and the different thought patterns there, but also how we have thought about those two things at different points in our lives and how they've changed or why they've changed. So that's kind of the conversation that we were wanting to have here today. So why don't you bring us back? What is it now? I can't even remember. What is it, like maybe 13 years ago, I think it is, when you started at university
Was
at
it
UFE?
was it that long ago already? How
Yeah,
old
I
is
think it's I think it's 2011 or 12.
I think I started in 2013, maybe.
Oh, nursing. Sorry, you're right.
Well, nursing school. I mean, I did have a cute little stint
Yeah,
at university before that.
but
I
why don't we start at nursing school, and
Okay,
why you were
sure.
doing that,
I
what
mean,
you were looking for in that, and maybe just generally what your mindset was at the
yeah.
time around education,
Okay,
post-education,
okay.
employment.
So, I mean, to go into like my mindset around education actually does take me back a little bit further, because I actually attended university in Kelowna for literally 6 weeks. And then I dropped out and I went there I started studying kinesiology. And it wasn't that the schooling was insanely hard or that I didn't like it, but I literally went for 6 weeks and I felt there was two things. One, I had moved away, and that was probably not the best idea at 18 years old. And then the second thing was I was going to school and I was literally like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this. And this is going to cost me a lot of freaking money to figure that out. And so I left it was like the middle of October. I went to school for 6 weeks. I came home after that.
Wasn't long.
Which I don't talk about this very much because like it literally was such a blur and I don't even remember lots of it. But
It was a
yeah,
good decision in hindsight
it was a good decision in hindsight to come
for
home
numerous reasons.
for so many reasons. So when I went back to university the second time around, like officially went back, I was pursuing nursing school strictly. I shouldn't say strictly. One of them, I had an interest in like human body sciences, all of that. So I was like, this aligns with my interests. But a massive decision to pursue nursing was I knew I'd get a job at the end, because that was one thing that my 6 week stint at the University of UBCO had given me, was like, I don't want to pursue any of these jobs like that I could get out of this. And I don't
I've
want
never heard you say that before.
what?
I've never heard you say that before.
What?
Like that you actually took that from your time at UBCO, like
No,
very
straight
short.
up. I was like, and because it was my first time and only time ever in my life that I took student loans. And I remember like getting the student loan, having to pay for school, having to pay for rent, literally being left with no money, wasn't working, and was like, I still have 3 whole months to go here with $0 coming in. And I don't even know what I'm going to do at the end of this. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. And so a big driving factor behind choosing nursing was I knew I was going to come out of that with a job, and it felt secure. It felt like a secure choice in what I was doing. I was like, I can go to school for 4 years. I'm going to get a job right away. It's a good paying job. It has a lot of elements that everybody told us we needed, like benefits and pension and all of these things that were so important and dictated success to people. And I thought, like, if I can just go to school and get that, I don't have to do any more schooling if I don't want to. I can just get a job right away. And I was really motivated by money. So I it just felt like it made sense. So that was a big reason why I went and pursued nursing, to be honest, is it kind of ticked off all of the logical boxes in my brain.
So you went in with the intention, obviously, I guess starting with, hey, I want to be a nurse, and then applied to UFE with the intention of coming out and becoming a nurse.
Yeah.
And a large part of the reason being, it's quote unquote a good job.
Yeah.
You get that
It was fairly
paid
stable.
well, you got
Yeah.
government pensions, you get health cares, you get dental, you get all these things.
You get it all. Yeah. And all it was 4 years of school. And even like, I come from families that have teachers in it. I wasn't interested in going to school, getting my degree, and then having to go back to get an extra degree to become a teacher, or to get a degree in kinesiology and then be a kinesiologist for $22 an hour. Like, I was not interested in that. I was like, I need a good paying job, something that actually I can live off of, that I can work ample amounts of overtime. Like, I knew there was elements in healthcare that I was like, there's opportunity to make real money in this industry. So that's what I want to pursue. And it also aligned, like, I was interested in the studies of it. It wasn't just like, I'm going to be a nurse to make good money. It was like, I was interested in the studies of it, but I would way rather do that than like be a PE teacher, which also was similar, like human body studies. But I was like, I don't want to have to go to school after this degree. Like, I want to be able to come out and make money. So that was a big driver behind that decision, for sure.
Yeah, it's a different application of knowledge, nursing,
Yeah.
and being
Yeah.
PE teacher.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah. And I'm honestly glad that I did take that, because I was interested in it and I was good at it.
Yeah.
Like, I was good at that career, and I do like it. Like, there's elements of it I
Right.
miss. Yeah, because plot twist, I don't do it anymore. But it was like, but I did like it. Like, I don't have a ton of negative things to say about it. It was just, which we'll get into, but it was just like a priority shift that made me get out of
So
that.
at that time, at that time, had you thought at all about being an entrepreneur, running your own business? Had you thought at all about, trading your time directly for money? Had any of those things crossed your mind? And
Never.
what did you think of them at the time? What
No.
were your thoughts of them at the time?
I had no thoughts of that, because it never crossed my mind that that was even an option or an opportunity for me. So I'm very much like an executor. Like, you give me a time and a place, like, I'm going to be good at what I do, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to do it. And like, I'm good at it. So, to have a job was not outside of I shouldn't even, like, it wasn't something
Skill
that
set.
I hated. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't mind having to go to work every day and have time, like, and have my time off when I needed. Like, I truly didn't mind it, but I also didn't know any better. Like, I just truly, that was the reality that I knew. And that was a reality that I was accepting of, because I just thought like everybody was doing it, and they truly were. So I didn't have any other thoughts really outside of that until later down the road. But initially, for the first 4 years or whatever of being a nurse, or 3 years of being a nurse before having Baker, like, I didn't know anything different, and it was great. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my story is a little bit different than that.
Yeah.
If I turn back the clock to when I started university and at the time, this was 2009. So I graduated in 2009, and then I went to university that fall. So I only had like 3 months of a summer and then straight back to it. And I come from a family as well where literally everybody in my extended family, aunts, uncles, all of them, to the best of my knowledge, they all were employed at jobs, and there's not one of them that ran their own business or started a company or anything like that. So I didn't really know too much differently at the time either. My dad had done a few things. We had a farm, so he had a business running a farm. He had a couple of other things that he did as well, but none of them were like, I'm going to quit my employed job and full-time gung-ho try and build a business in that sense.
Yeah.
It was more of a in conjunction with working a job. And he was a marriage counselor, so he would kind of make his own hours, and in some ways that was a little bit entrepreneurial as well, because it wasn't like somebody's telling you when to show up and what to do. And it was more of booking clients when you want and have time, and then running a farm or doing the other smaller business ventures that he had done. So at that time, getting a job was the only thing really that I knew, other than sort of dabbling in selling hay bales as a kid. There's extra hay bales, or doing the odd lemonade stand, or collecting bottles for hockey sticks or whatever it was, right? So I went to school, and when I went to school, I didn't go to school for the reasons that you went to school.
No.
I went to school 100% so that I could play on the golf team at the university. And one of the conditions of playing on the golf team is that you actually had to take courses in school.
Yeah, shocker. You had to actually go to school to be on the golf team.
That's literally how it went. Is I went and met with the coach. His name is Chris Bertram. He's a good friend of mine. And my dad and him and I sat down and talked, and I ended up trying out for the golf team that year, and mad scrambled to get in classes because I made the golf team. So I did not go to school with the idea of I have some job in mind. And I ended up in kinesiology because Chris taught in the kinesiology program, and I could get into some classes. And it's something that I was generally interested in. I had two brothers who we all played sports and are athletic, and so that world interests me generally. So that's how I ended up in the program, kinesiology, and I ended up completing a degree in kinesiology. And even still, when I finished, I had no idea what like employment options I had at that point, and there wasn't many. Plus, I didn't even know what employment options interested me, even though I had this degree that I had completed. And I ended up going and doing another degree because it was an opportunity that came up in Las Vegas to go and do a master's degree down there. And at the time, I had a scholarship for this, and so again, same thing. I didn't have employment opportunity coming out of those things in mind. I went because it was an opportunity it was the best opportunity I had at the time. And so I went and did it, and just kind of went, well, we'll see what comes out of this. And that's, why I went down there. So I did not go through university one bit thinking this is what's coming out of this. I want this job or that job. Like that was not what my university experience was like. My university experience was, I'm a naturally curious person, and I like to learn, generally just like to learn. So I actually enjoyed probably the last 3 years ish of doing degrees. So that's 2 years of a master's degree. I really enjoyed that. And I also enjoyed my last year at UFB because of my bachelor's, because I actually applied myself, and I knew there was a master's opportunity coming down the pipeline, and I got really good grades, and I applied myself. And so I generally like to learn, but I came out of those and going, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And I never once thought at that time that, starting a company or getting involved in running a business, or not one time did that actually cross my mind. And like you said, I ended up teaching at the school that I went and completed my bachelor's degree at. So I ended up teaching afterwards, going back to the school and teaching classes at the university. And at the time, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I was having to learn new skills like speaking in public or putting together a course for 13 weeks of a semester and managing 25 plus students in a class and all kinds of new things to me. So at the time I didn't know anything different either. And I was, to be honest, kind of excited because I had a pretty good paying job with pretty good time flexibility and I was helping coach the golf team and I had a lot of good things with that job. So I like you said, I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
And it's not until like both of us,
Yeah.
so that was 2017, 18, 19 kind
Yeah.
of time frame. We were both working as in our different jobs. I was
Yeah.
teaching and you were nursing and we were at that time working our two jobs. So
Yeah.
2019 rolls around and we have we had a baby boy, Baker, in November, and that is quite an experience. Obviously, if our first kid is really hard to explain to anybody. It's just
Yeah.
it's very shocking, many of the things that occur, and it's a
Yeah.
big time, I guess, a wake up call. You know, you really don't understand how easy life is when it's two
Yeah.
adults working two
It's so
jobs and no other responsibilities. So that was November, and I remember it was very, very difficult teaching the rest of that semester
yeah.
with having to figure out a little kid at home baby, like changing diapers, getting terrible sleep.
Yeah.
Your focus is just not at work at that point. It's at
Well, I
home
remember
or
too, like, I'm pretty sure you took, like, you took 1 week off of classes, you put everything online, you went back for a couple weeks, and then you had your exam period, and then we had Christmas. So it actually, like,
yeah.
worked out to be decent timing because you ended up with, like, Christmas break with, like, 5 weeks off or whatever, but it was still such a whirlwind of
Yeah,
it.
it was just it's just hard to adapt. I mean, that was a month stretch. So there was a month before classes had stopped for me, and then I had kind of all my time was a little bit more do it when you need to or want to do it, kind of versus like you got to be in class for
Yeah.
12 hours a week and you got a bunch of prep stuff to do. And so, but yeah, that was a tough 1 month. I remember it was really hard to be going to class and you're getting woken up like 2, 3 times a night and you're not used to it at that point. So
2, 3 times. Yeah.
obviously it's different now and when you're a bit more used to getting waken up multiple times in the
Yeah.
night. It was really shocker for me because I'm somebody who likes to sleep. Like I need to sleep, have a decent sleep. I'm better at functioning with less sleep now, but certainly at that time in life, it was like I need to get 7 straight hours minimum, or it's
Yeah.
really tough for me. So,
Yeah.
so then we had Baker in November. We roll through Christmas. 2020 comes around, and then
We all,
March 2020, everybody's life changes
yeah.
in a
We
big
all
way.
March 20. That was,
And so COVID runs around and everything just basically stops. The world stops. And you and I, my world shifted immediately to online.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we were really
I was
lucky,
I was not
honestly.
at school at all. Everything I did was online. Everything was through Zoom meetings. Everything was much more when you have the time to do it, go ahead and do it. Nobody's looking over your shoulder for you got to be doing anything at any time of the week. You just got to get your stuff done and do it however you need to do it. So that's how my work scenario changed in a hurry. Yours was a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like, I want to preface this too with, like, we were some of the very fortunate ones. Like, I do understand lots of people lost a lot of jobs and money and things were stressful at that time. And we were very fortunate. Like, Aaron was able to keep his job, keep his pay, just transition to everything being at home. And then on the other hand of things, like, I had taken maternity leave starting November of 2019. So I was 4 months into maternity leave when that had all gone down as well. So I was already off work. Um, and so that was helpful in a sense of, like, my, other than, obviously losing all of the support of family because of lockdowns and quarantines and all of the crazy stuff that we all had to deal with, our world didn't necessarily change that much for the worse. Like, I would actually say that there was a lot of elements of that time that we really enjoyed, and we actually learned a lot about ourselves. Like, we were also fortunate in the sense that we were one of those couples that were like, this is awesome. Like, we get to be together all the time. And we had just obviously had this brand new baby. So even for Aaron to be able to be home all of the time, like, that's not something that a lot of dads get access to, right? Like, he was able to be around for all of Baker's like baby life because of this circumstance. So there was a lot of elements of that that were really nice, but I will be honest, like, when, my maternity leave, I'd only taken 12 months. And again, even mindset wise, I was always somebody that thought that I would return to work and never thought that I would actually want to be home as a mom. Like, I always was like, when people would ask me as my maternity leave was starting, they'd say like, oh, are you taking 12 or 18 months? Because in Canada, we get that option. And I was like, oh, I'm taking 12. Like, there's no way, I cannot see myself wanting to be home with my baby past 12 months. Like, I see myself being a working mom. That was what I pictured for myself. So as my maternity leave started to dwindle down, and the circumstances of the nursing profession, I could imagine, or I mean, you could maybe imagine what they were during the times of COVID. They were high stress. Like, I had coworkers and friends and doctors that, would like be coming home from their shift in emergency and sleeping in the basement for a few days. And, while they were working their 4-day set of like 2 days, 2 nights, like, they wouldn't be spending time with their families, and they, and stuff like that. And I just thought, like, there has to be something more or something better than this option. I don't want to go back to work with my new baby who I'm obsessed with and try and find daycare. Like, that was also stressful too, the whole daycare situation because of COVID. Like, the second your baby has sniffles, now you can't go to work, and like all of these things, right? There were so many things that I was thinking about. I didn't want to have to spend 4 days away in order to go work this job. Like, there was a lot of elements that really did not sound super inviting to be going back to come the fall and when my maternity leave is supposed to end. So there was a lot of things that happened during 2020 that made me open up my mind to different opportunities that were existing. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where this all started, was 2020 and some of the elements of it that caused us to think about things differently. And I know for you too, and for myself, like, one of the big ones as well is the time flexibility that we ended up getting with that, where it was like, the things have to get done, but they can get done when we want to do them or when we can carve out the time to do them, and they don't have to be done on a schedule. And it kind of made us think like, this is nice. Would you agree? Like, that was kind of one of the biggest eye openers for you, where you were like, there is other ways to be able to make life work.
Yeah, totally. Like, no doubt about it. The fact that my wage specifically at the university did not change at all, but the time commitment I had in person did a
Yeah.
180. And
It stopped existing.
now all of a sudden, I don't have to be somewhere at a specific time. I just have an amount of work to do when I need to do it. And I can schedule meetings with students that fits my time and their time and all these things. So that was the first taste of, wow, I can do things when I want to do them, not when somebody else wants me to do stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the one of the big ones at that time that and I didn't even realize what was happening at the time. And I don't think you would necessarily say the same. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, you look back at it and go, okay, that was pretty clearly, when we were given that, I would say benefit, because not everybody got that.
No.
That benefit in life, you're like, whoa, it would be really hard to give this up now. To go away from this would be extremely difficult once you had it.
I remember like there was elements and times where we were like really hoping like you guys would have a meeting about like in-person classes starting again. And we would sit there and we'd be like, oh my gosh, I really hope like they don't do the in-person thing. Like, we would sit there and be like, I really hope they extend the online stuff because this has been so nice. And, like, I remember that.
So, like, I'm by nature a very intrinsic person. Like I want to sit at a computer by myself and read or read a book or whatever. Like I'm not, you are very different in that way.
Yeah.
And I remember a conversation we had at the time because everything had shut down. You can't go see anybody. You can't do much. And you found it very hard.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with you and where you were like, oh, this is really hard. In the back of my head while I'm listening to this, I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I remember saying to you one day, I'm like, don't you understand? The whole world is normally set up for,
People
you
like
know,
me.
people like you
Yeah.
who want to go out and see their friends and want to, be involved in 100 different things at all the time and be out of the house and do all this stuff. It's not set up for people who are more like me.
Yeah.
So it kind of flipped 180 at the time.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was like, this is great for me. I'm like, this is awesome. I can get up before everybody's out of bed. I can get up and I can do the schoolwork that I need to do. And I might have a meeting or two or three or whatever throughout the day for half an hour apiece, but I can schedule those whenever I want. And if the kid goes to sleep, Baker goes and has a nap, I can do more schoolwork. Or if it's 10:30 at night, I can do more. Like I can do it when I want to do it. So that was a huge piece. That piece was, once you get that, it's very difficult to go back. And I think you can see that in the world now where there's a lot of talk and action on going back into offices. But it would be very difficult for that to happen once you have that luxury of time flexibility. So that was one piece that happened at that time.
Yeah.
The second piece that happened at that time was you were not feeling great physically about yourself generally after having Baker.
Yeah.
And you ended up doing you describe it, what, a food
Yeah.
program, like an
Yeah.
eating.
Yeah. I mean, I got introduced to program through a network marketing company. And I mean, and it's funny too, because even when I think about the mindset of that, we're sitting down with you and being like, I really want to do this. Like, I feel like garbage. I'm ready to take care of myself now. And it was like this full blown talk and like investment into myself. And you basically looked me in the eye because maternity leave, income's cut in half in one department of our lives. Right. And so and this was just before COVID had happened. So like we had already gone to like Vegas. We've been to Palm Springs already on these first couple months of maternity leave. Like we were still spending money. We hadn't really stopped doing that.
Those were with the golf. That was with the golf team. That was
It
not on
was,
our.
but I tagged along. So
Yeah.
we were still doing some things. And so you basically said to me like, okay, well, if you want to do this and you want to spend the money on this, you better do this. Like you better not waste it. And I was like, you're right. Okay. So I went full out on this program and honestly, it changed my whole life. So like, I mean, that's a whole different segment, but it changed so many things about my mindset around food and just the way I was feeling ever. And I felt so good that because it was a network marketing company, it was also introduced to me that like there was a business opportunity attached. And to be completely honest, it was something that, 5 months prior, I would have never touched with a 10-foot pole. Like you would not have been able to pay me enough money to do something like that. But I think and even like the mindset I had back then when I was getting introduced to it and getting started with it was not something that I ever thought I was going to take super seriously, to be honest, because I still held on to the fact that like I was a nurse and I was going back to work. And that was the decision that I had made prior to my baby being born. And that was the decision that I was going to stick with. And even though that decision like ate me up and there were so many very unappealing things about that, I still held on to that so strongly that I couldn't see. Again, this is the mindset shift. Like I was still in the employee mindset of like, but I have a job. I went to school to do this thing. I can't just not do that thing anymore. Like that's crazy. So there was never in my mind, even when I was introduced to the business and I heard the opportunity and it all sounded appealing and I knew there was very limited risk. Like it was a $65 sign up or something. And like, that was essentially it. Even though knowing all of those things, I still was like, but I'm a nurse. Like I'm going to continue to be that. And there was nothing initially that made me think or feel any differently or that this would be something that would be more than that ever. So that's definitely one thing too, that like, yeah, okay, I was introduced to it, but the mindset of the business opportunity that I was being introduced to was still not something I ever thought would become anything.
Yeah, I agree. Like when you first we chatted about it a few times.
Yeah.
And I guess the consensus out of those conversations is like, I mean, okay, well, why don't you, if you want to try it? I remember you approached me asking about it, and I was like, thought what everyone thinks about network marketing when they first hear about it. And I was like, whatever, if you want to try it, then it means it's $65. What's the worst that happens? You spend some time and lose 65 bucks.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, that's
Yeah.
not something to not try something over.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest shifts that came from that were two big shifts. One was, I don't know, a month or two later, you got a paycheck that came from this. And that was like a huge moment because
just a paycheck, you guys. We're not even going to say what it was because it wasn't a lot, but it
wasn't a big
paycheck.
amount, but it was like enough
paycheck.
to go. It was enough to go, whoa, this is actually like big time proof of concept here. Like this actually can work, obviously, because you had just done stuff for like 60, 30 days or whatever. They sent you money.
Yeah.
Company. And we were like, oh, okay, this is different. And we both realized, like, at no point in there was it was like, hey, you come and do this and we'll give you $40 an hour. Or it was just like, if you want to do something, do it. And if you're good at it or can make something of it, you'll get paid from that.
Yeah.
And so that was a change from just like showing up, putting in your hours, getting paid based on that time you've put in, and going home. Yeah. And then the other big shift that came was when you joined that company, you started to be around people who thought the way of an entrepreneur or a business person. And so these people, in hindsight, this is a massive thing for being successful in the entrepreneur space. Yeah. Getting around other people who are doing it, who think this way, who have been doing it longer than you, who have been doing it more successfully than you, and listening to what they have to tell you, even though you think don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. So those two things at that time were like a sledgehammer through what we had previously thought about making money and employment, and really employment being the only option at that point.
100%. And I think too, like for me, that was really my first taste of personal growth in any capacity. I know for Aaron, like he has had some experience. He's read some books. He's been around people who are deep into the personal growth space and are consultants or coaches or whatever that is. And so he's been around people who have different mindsets when it comes to just even mindset. But for me, I never dove into that. And so it really flipped my whole world perspective, the way that I viewed things. It really flipped it all upside down. And one of the things for me is that, especially being in that community that was involved with our network marketing company, it was people who started off just like I did. And now we're doing things very differently than the path that I was on, and had that time flexibility that we had kind of come to adapt to as a result of the current circumstances, and that we were really kind of not looking forward to going back to when things kind of opened up. So I think being able to see other people live a life that was appealing to me as a result of their hard work and efforts from taking this opportunity, I kind of went, like, maybe there is something here that I wasn't looking for necessarily, but now that I'm in it, could take advantage of or could work hard to achieve as well. So it really did shift my whole mindset. But that being said, like, there obviously, with a lot of businesses, and this is one thing too with the entrepreneurial side of things that you have to get accustomed to, or you have to at least know is most likely going to be your path, is that you're going to start something, and to build it to a place where it's your full-time thing takes time. It's not immediate. And so, I had all of these, going into this industry and growing it for, a few months or a year or whatever. Like, I had all these dreams. I had these visions now that had kind of been planted just by being around the community and seeing people go for it. But like, I still had to go to work. Like, it wasn't just like I could not be a nurse anymore. Like, I did actually still have to be a nurse. And so then there was this balance of like, I don't want to do this anymore, but financially, I still need to show up and do this. And so there's sacrifice in that. And there's, I don't know, I mean, I would say there's sacrifice probably is just the best term to do it. It's like, you know, now that your path is a little different, but you can't just fully go into that. Like, you do still have to I still needed my full-time job to pay our bills while I was building the other thing, you know?
Yeah. And at that time, when you had started this business, network marketing business, and you were making a little bit of money, like we said, it wasn't anything to support anyone or anything like that. But one of the things we thought was, okay, we know people around here who make significantly more than what you would ever need to live life doing this. And the other thing was, we had just gone to school for 4 years and 7 years to come out and make like $40 or $50 an hour.
Yeah.
And so when you think of, okay, I just went to school for 7 years, you went to school for 4 years to learn a bunch of skills, and I paid money to learn those skills.
Yes.
In that time, I made no money from learning these skills. And all the while, you're now a nurse, you start this business, and you start making money while you're learning the skills.
Yes.
It is like, just blew our minds that this something doesn't add up here, like why would we have done that? Looking at the rearview mirror, like the payoff of that just is nowhere near the payoff of Route B. Like, so that was a big thing too at that time. Just thinking of that, being like, this something doesn't add up here. Like, I'm going to go pay 50 grand to learn a bunch of skills and then hope to get a job where I'm largely capped. And we're not saying like that being employed is a bad thing or anything like that.
No.
But both of us are very motivated people, and we are more than willing to take risks. We are more than willing to take financial risks.
Yeah.
And so our characteristics don't lead well to being employed. They are more geared towards being an entrepreneur, paving your own way and figuring out how to make money, doing whatever it is you choose to do. So it's totally different for somebody who wants to come home and not think about work, who wants to have no responsibility once they walk out the office door, who, wants to make their 50 or whatever it is, 100 grand a year or whatever it is, and they're fine with it, and they don't want anything more, and they don't want to push past that, and they're just, that's okay. There's lots of people in the world that are like that. So we're not saying it's bad to be employed by any,
like that.
there's lots about being employed,
Yes,
such as
absolutely.
a constant paycheck. That doesn't exist in, like, especially early on, that doesn't exist in starting your own venture of any kind. No. So what we're saying is that for us, once we had learned some things, differences between employment and entrepreneurship, we thought, whoa, by nature, we are much more geared towards the entrepreneur route, even though both of us had spent significant time going the road of employment.
Yeah.
So that's the point there.
Yeah.
Both are good. It depends who you are. It depends who you are, whether employment's excellent for you or whether it's not for you, and entrepreneurship is. But same's the other way. And again, if you're not motivated to, build something or go out on your own and take risk, you should not be an entrepreneur. You shouldn't do it. You should find a good paying job and stick to it and live a happy life.
Yeah.
So those were a bunch of things that had happened at that time.
Yeah.
With COVID, getting time flexibility in our lives, pushing through. You start a new network marketing business. We have some proof of concept. We have some, you're around different people thinking different ways now. And so we kind of pursued that for a while. We did another sort of entrepreneurial venture. We after that, the last few years, building a house. We took significant amount of money and built a house, which again was an entrepreneurial type venture and something that we took risk and there's payoff for it, obviously, but there is risk in all of that. So now that we've sort of switched, what does your mindset around employment versus entrepreneurship, and what does that look for like for you today?
Yeah. I mean, I never want to say anything like you said. I never want to say anything that's going to like offend other people because I truly believe that the universe needs people who are employees. They do. And there's excellent employees out there and there's positions out there where people absolutely thrive and they love what they do and they excel and they have that position for that reason. And that's fantastic. I think for me, one of the biggest things that has shifted and honestly has encouraged me or empowered me to step into the entrepreneurial side is I have now a very strong value of how I want my life to look and the way I want to spend my time. And so I have basically just a main focus of like, I want to be in control of where my time is spent. This does not mean that I don't want to work. I love what I do and I love working and I love what I get to do for work every single day, but I love that I get to choose when I want to do it. And I love that I don't have to answer really to any other person but myself. And so those two elements for me are a game changer when it comes to choosing what I do for my career. If there was a job out there that paid me like an hourly rate and it gave me those two things, the time flexibility and the opportunity to do it whenever I wanted, it would also be enticing to me. So there's not necessarily like I could never be an employee, but I also kind of feel like I could never be an employee. Like I feel like I'm unemployable at this point because I do really value like being the one that is in control and not having to answer to anybody else. But in terms of like my mindset for being an employee versus being an entrepreneur, there's a couple things that kind of come to mind. One is I don't enjoy anymore trading time for money. I think that there is so many opportunities out there where you are able to leverage your time, leverage your network, leverage so many different things. I mean, there's systems in place that allow you to leverage your time so much. It's crazy when you're in the entrepreneurial space that I just feel like I want to work smarter, not harder. And I really want to work on something that I'm super passionate about. Another thing too, that even has just like shifted, I mean, from my career that I was in before. And I mean, this could be a whole podcast episode in itself, but like finding something that you're super passionate about. So like I found like with nursing, I was passionate about people and taking care of people and helping people. But I found through this venture, I'm way more passionate around taking care of people who want to take care of themselves instead of the other way around of taking care of people who didn't really take care of themselves. In some instances, I get there's accidents, there's other things that are out of people's control that happen to them. But in a lot of instances where I was working in trauma and emergency, a lot of it is fixing the problems of long-term damage of people that didn't take care of themselves. And I found that I got frustrated in that industry because there's a lot of the same people coming back. And so this is a different thing, but like really finding, I guess, your passion and then turning that into a business opportunity. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't see myself being being an employee anymore because I'd rather have the control and be in control of that, but then also know that like my efforts and I can always work harder. Like if I want to make more money, if I want to be more successful, like I can always work harder. There's always more opportunity there for that. Whereas like showing up to a job, especially like a union position, it doesn't matter. Like if you're good, if you're bad, if you've been there however long, you still make the same amount of money no matter what. If you're happy, if you're grumpy, if you're miserable at people, or if you excel. Like you're still going to show up. You're going to make the same hourly rate as the other nurse that's worked for 10 years because you both have worked for 10 years. And I just am so much more aligned with the vision of like, if you're good at what you do, there's an opportunity to make way more. And in a lot of industries that just doesn't exist. And so this is something for me that I'm just like, I'm willing, like you said, like we're the hardworking type. We are the ones that like, we're willing to put in the reps and willing to do in order to grow. And I was a good nurse. Like, I know that. And I enjoyed what I did and I showed up and I was happy, but there was no opportunity for growth unless I wanted to work in management, which I absolutely didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, sounded like an awful idea for me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I liked that you were in control of your paycheck more so here and you could choose how big you wanted it to be. There was no cap. Like, I wasn't going to work for 12 years. Then all of a sudden that was going to be the most I was going to make now in my career until I died or retired.
Yeah.
Um, and I also just, the vision of working till I was 65, I was just like, no, there has to be another way, especially with kids. It really just made me go, there is no way that I'm going to be happy missing out on these boys' lives if I'm working till I'm 65 and then can finally enjoy my life. Like, I really wanted to have that balance of being able to be like, I want to work hard now, but also be able to enjoy my life now and not have to miss out on the moments because of that flexibility of being able to decide when I want to work, you know?
Yeah. So for me, I largely agree with what you're saying. For me, one of the things that I took from sports playing competitive golf was the person who works the hardest, the person who learns the fastest, the person who can perform the best is the person who gets rewarded the most. And the employment positions that I had, specifically at the university, it did not work that way.
No.
Like you said at the hospital, it did not function that way. It was not about, high performance. It felt more about like what accolades can you write on a piece of paper, and you should be compensated according to that. And everything to come from here on out should be based on these things. How much time have you put in? What letters can you put behind your name? Things that to me had nothing to do with what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
and so taking that from the sports world, when we got a taste of entrepreneurship and watching it close hand and trying it at various points now, I really like that it is rewarding based on skill and performance and effort and all of these things that I value and things that I'm personally willing to do. So I really like that. And that's something that I think of a lot now when opportunities come up. A couple other points of how I think about this now is one really big one for me now is time flexibility. And I'm not saying it's across the board. There's nothing I would do if it didn't offer me time flexibility. I would have to really like it if I was to be in an employment position, like really like it. And there's only, on the top of my head, there's only one thing I can think of. But outside of that, it would be very difficult to convince me to give up 40 or more hours of my week when my kids are this little to do anything for money at this point. So that's a huge one to me at this point is, and that could change down the road when the kids are older and they're not around as much. And, having an employment position might be something to consider where you can be around people in an office or, be part of a team. There's some positives to it in that sense. But the big one for me right now is just how much time is this going to consume of me away from something that I really want to be around? And then the third one that I think is the risk return reward profile of employment versus entrepreneurship. And by nature, I'm not a huge risk taker, but I am a big risk taker when I feel there is reward that outweighs the amount of risk on the table. And in employment, there's really no risk. There's risk that you might lose your job. So like you're incentivized to do the bare minimum to keep your job. And in some places, you might be incentivized to, if you work harder and perform, they'll pay you some more or give you a better job. There's no risk reward profile where something you've built can 10x in 3 years. And like that doesn't exist in the world of employment. And that's something now we're in a different position today than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
To be able to take on risk and still be fine. But it's something now that really excites me. I see something with a risk reward profile that I think is exciting. And it's something that I want to pursue. And sometimes they're going to fail. Absolutely. Sometimes you're going to fail and you're going to lose a bit of money and time and effort. But to me, I'm okay with that at this point. I've become somebody much more willing, to take shots in life, even if it, you know, 7 times out of 10, it's not going to work out. The other 3 shots that you take are going to more than make up for that. So that's kind of my view now on employment versus entrepreneurship. I think I'm much more geared towards being an entrepreneur, and we're just sort of dipping our toes in the water. Like we've just sort of gone away from the employment world towards the entrepreneurship world. Yeah. So we're just getting started, I would say, but it's made our lives infinitely better. Just being able to choose, what we do every day. And like Asia said, currently what she does, she loves to do it. So it's not like she's going to work. She fits it in. Oftentimes she takes our kids to play with other kids while they work, and
Yeah.
doing it at the park, at the lake, wherever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are some things that today about entrepreneurship that we really value as a couple, and some of the things that dictate our decision making, things that weigh heavily into our decision making whenever we consider, or if we were to consider employment versus starting a venture of our own, or building the ventures that we do have going.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, like an element of success, like you said, the risk reward thing. I mean, this brings up a valid point as well of like, there are elements of success that people have had to do that it didn't necessarily make sense at the time, or it might not have like looked like the right time. I mean, Aaron and I have had lots of opportunity or different circumstances in life where there's been conversations made of like, maybe we should invest in this area, even though we might not have the money, we might not have the resources, we might not have, but it opens up the time to be able to pour into here. Like a prime example of this is like so we were building a house, obviously, which was kind of like our last entrepreneurial thing that we've done. And that house is now for sale and whatever. We were building a house. I was at home with both kids, working on growing my business, and Aaron was gone like Monday to Friday, kind of working a full-time thing, right? And this again is like, this is time put in, lots of money put in with no immediate return. Like we have been working on this for years and there's still no immediate return. And
It actually made our life harder.
it actually made our life
In the immediate, it made our life significantly harder.
Yes. The whole process of that made our lives significantly harder. And there was moments where I was like, I am going crazy because we bought a 2-bedroom condo to live in, 900 square feet with our family of 4 during the process of building this house, so that we had somewhere to live while we were building our house, because we had sold our first home. And so that was tight. I'm at home with 2 kids inside this condo. It's winter time. I'm trying to also build a business while I have a new baby at home. Like was so many things around it that were extremely challenging. And I was like, I need a nanny. And meanwhile, Aaron is building this home that's paying us $0 a month to build and costing us a lot upfront, right? Obviously, investment into the future. And I'm working a network marketing business. And I was like, we need a nanny. Like, I need to hire somebody to help me because I need to work this business. And it, I would say, was almost a resounding yes. From you, it was like, yeah, we need to do this. If this is the basket we're putting our eggs in, then this is something we need to prioritize. And it didn't make sense on paper, you guys, to pay somebody to help us with our family. It truly didn't. But it was a place that we were like, if this is where we see us going, if this is where we see this business going, it's up to us then to like invest in the time that it's going to take in order to do that. And if we need to hire help, we need to hire help. And so I think too, there's an element of that of like, there's no guarantee that by hiring a nanny, my business is going to grow. There's no guarantee. Would I bet on myself? Yeah, I would. And that's why we together chose to make that decision, as we were both willing to bet on myself to be able to pull that off. But there was no guarantee in that. And I think that's where you see the separation of people who become successful and who don't, is that they're willing to bet on themselves a little bit and do that risk analysis of like, is the potential payout worth the risk of doing this investment or pursuing this or whatever. And I don't know if you view that decision in the same way that I do, but I truly do believe that helped us long term and was extremely beneficial to us and our family by having that.
Yeah, I think for sure.
Yeah.
I think one is that I think you needed it at a personal level because
100% I did.
it was really hard for you at the time on a personal level.
Yeah.
And then we justified doing it by saying, okay, look, if we do this and spend this money, are we going to be able to recoup this somehow? Okay, yes. Okay, you're going to do all these things while the kids are being watched by our nanny, Lily. Then, okay, let's do it. And it is 100%. You are betting on yourself. And
Yeah.
I would say a large part of entrepreneurship is betting on yourself.
Yeah.
That's what you are doing essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Can you build the skills, the mindset, the relationships, whatever it is you need to build? Can you do it and put up your own money in order to do it?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think, yeah, where we are at is on a sliding scale of employment to entrepreneurship is we've moved much more towards the entrepreneurship side of things, where we're much more interested in taking our time and resources and efforts and thoughts and putting them into something that we can build. And maybe down the road it becomes something, maybe it doesn't, but that's an exciting process. It's become an exciting process to us. We've seen it work a couple of times now, and so we get excited by that now. We get excited about talking about something, coming up with an idea, implementing an idea, figuring out what we need to do skill-wise, what do you need to learn and execute on, and how can we work together to do this. And so that excites us these days. And that's kind of where we are today as of 2025. So I think that's a good place to cut this off. A couple of things. One is that we would like to do Q&A session, where Asia and I just answer whatever questions people have for us. So if you have a question, or yeah, whatever question you want. If you have a question, put your question down in a comment box, or if it's on, I don't know that you can leave questions on Apple and Spotify and podcasts, but if you go to our Instagram, our 2 Cents Podcast on Instagram, leave a question in the inbox or in a comment or somewhere, and we're going to compile a bunch of these questions. And then one of these episodes will just be us answering questions that people have, and hopefully it's a bit of a fun thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I was going to say was, if in any way you enjoy what we're doing here, something that we would enjoy if you did in return is just go to one of the platforms of podcasts and give us a review on the podcast. And if you like what we're doing, give a good review. That would be very much appreciated. So I think that's it for this week's episode. Asia, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think that's good. But
no?
Yeah, we appreciate all you guys that are watching and just even all the messages and cheering us on for doing this venture. It's been something that, I said kind of in our very intro post of us doing this podcast. It's something that we've talked about for a while and is a big passion project for us. And obviously you guys are seeing us grow and learn together as we figure this all out. But we're just really appreciative for everybody that listens and pays attention, downloads our episodes and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. One other thing is, eventually, one of these days, we're going to have a guest on here. So if you think somebody would be a good guest for us, throw that in a message and send it over to us, or put it in a comment, or connect with us, and we'll start to have some guests one of these days. So that would be greatly appreciated. But that's it for now. So enjoy your week, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, bye guys.
Bye.